How many lives could have been saved if we understood the invisible enemies around us just a little sooner? From spoiled milk to deadly infections, the unseen world of germs once ruled with silent terror. But one man stood up against it, with a microscope and an unbreakable will. Watch till the end to discover how Louis Pasteur changed your world, without you even knowing it. On December 27, 1822, as winter still blanketed the rooftops of the small town of Dole, in eastern France, a child let out his first cry in the modest home of a poor tanner. That child, Louis Pasteur, no one could have known then, would grow up to become the man who laid the foundations of microbiology, the man who would lead humanity out of the invisible grasp of bacteria and disease. Pasteur's childhood was not bathed in the glow of brilliance like other famed geniuses. He was quiet, reserved, and showed little promise at school, except for one unusual skill: sketching pencil portraits of his family. His father, a former soldier in Napoleon's army, had nothing to offer but a deep love for his country, and the hope that his son would one day do something truly great. When Louis enrolled at the prestigious École Normale Supérieure in Paris, he was not the top of his class, but he possessed something rare: a stubborn, unrelenting perseverance. Night after night, he hunched over his microscope, not for grades, but because he was consumed by a question. Could the world that the naked eye cannot see be the very thing that controls the fate of humankind? In 1847, Pasteur defended his doctoral thesis on the optical properties of crystals, a discovery so complex that most of his friends couldn't even grasp it. But that was just the beginning. From the mysterious behavior of molecules, Pasteur would go on to wage war against living organisms far more dangerous: bacteria, breaking the spell of spontaneous generation. In Europe during the 19th century, people still believed in what seemed to be common sense, that life could spontaneously arise from non-living matter. Leave a piece of raw meat out in the open air, and within days, maggots would appear. Wasn't that clear proof? Pasteur, by then already a respected chemist, refused to accept that idea. He believed the opposite: all life comes from life. But he didn't just believe, he set out to prove it. He invented something strange: a swan neck flask. Inside, he placed a nutrient broth, a liquid that bacteria love to grow in. He boiled it to sterilize it completely, then left it open to the air, but the neck of the flask curved like the graceful neck of a swan. No one expected the broth to remain clear for long, but day after day it stayed transparent. No smell, no life. Why? Because while air could flow in and out freely, dust and bacteria were trapped in the curve, unable to reach the broth. Then Pasteur snapped the neck of the flask. Within days, the broth turned cloudy, foul. That simple experiment, a flask and some broth, shattered a belief that had lasted for millennia, dating back to Aristotle. Pasteur didn't just debunk an old myth. He opened a door to microbiology, to modern medicine, to an entirely new understanding of the invisible world, a world where unseen organisms determined life and death. But Pasteur wasn't satisfied just knowing bacteria existed. For him, that knowledge brought a mission: to fight them and to protect humanity from their silent invasions. A mistake that changed history. Summer 1879. The heat bore down on Pasteur's lab, where he and his assistants were studying a mysterious and deadly disease: chicken cholera, a plague that was devastating poultry farms across France. Each day, they injected healthy chickens with fresh cultures of the bacteria and watched them fall ill and die. It was a grim but necessary process to understand the disease in hopes of stopping it. One day, by some twist of fate, a batch of bacteria was accidentally left in the lab's cooler for weeks, forgotten and unused. When it was finally injected into a group of chickens, something strange happened. None of them died. They appeared weak for a short time but quickly recovered. Pasteur was stunned. Could the bacteria, weakened over time, have lost their power to kill? To test it, he re-injected those same chickens with fresh, virulent bacteria. This time again, they didn't die. Pasteur was silent. He realized this was no coincidence. It was a mechanism the body had been trained. After exposure to a weaker form of the disease, it had built a kind of memory. The next time the real threat came, the immune system was ready. That moment was monumental. The first vaccine born from an accidental oversight. Pasteur had always believed that chance only favors the prepared mind. And indeed, without his years of meticulous study, his relentless scientific skepticism, that moment might have passed unnoticed, as it had for so many others before him. Buoyed by his success with chicken cholera, Pasteur set his sights on a greater and deadlier enemy, anthrax, a disease that had wiped out millions of livestock across Europe and often infected humans as well. He needed to prove that vaccines could work not just on chickens, but on sheep, cattle, even humans. In 1881, he staged a public trial in the village of Pouilly-le-Fort. On a wide pasture, he divided 50 sheep into 2 groups. The first received his newly developed anthrax vaccine. The second received nothing. 2 weeks later, both groups were injected with a lethal dose of live anthrax bacteria. Journalists, doctors, skeptical farmers, even scoffers came to watch. And then the day of reckoning. One by one, the unvaccinated sheep collapsed, foaming at the mouth, dying in agony. But the vaccinated ones, still standing, still grazing, as if no war had been waged inside them. Pasteur had proven for all to see, vaccines work, and science, when pursued with courage, could conquer even the most terrifying plagues. A boy, a bite, and a decision that changed medicine forever. July 6, 1885. A woman pounded on the door of Pasteur's laboratory, desperate. By her side stood a trembling, pale boy. "Please," she cried, "save my son. He's been bitten by a rabid dog. There's no one else." The boy was Joseph Meister, only 9 years old and already doomed. Rabies at the time was a death sentence, a horrible one. Pasteur had developed a rabies vaccine, but had only tested it on dogs, never a human. If he failed, he could be charged with manslaughter. But if he did nothing, the boy would certainly die. After a sleepless night, Pasteur made his decision. "I will inject him." Each day he gave Joseph a shot, carefully calibrated. The virus weakened step by step. He watched the boy's every breath, every fever. Day 1 stable. Day 3 still no symptoms. Day 7 Joseph smiled at him. And then he lived. Pasteur had not just saved a child. He had saved the future of modern medicine. In 1887, Pasteur founded the Institut Pasteur in Paris, a center for infectious disease research, where hundreds of scientists would carry on his legacy of fighting for life. Pasteur did not live many years after. A series of strokes left him partially paralyzed, but he kept working, kept observing, kept writing. On September 28, 1895, Louis Pasteur passed away in the arms of his family. Joseph Meister, the boy he had saved, would go on to become the doorkeeper of the very institute that bore his name, a quiet guardian of the man who once saved his life. Louis Pasteur once said, "In the field of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind." He was not a prophet. He was not a physician. He was a man who searched for truth in the smallest of things, and in doing so, saved millions. And today, every vaccine, every sterile surgery room, every bottle of milk is a silent tribute to the man who saw life in what others thought was invisible. Do you think Louis Pasteur is the most important scientist in history? Or is there someone else you'd like us to explore next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you learned something new. Share it with a friend who loves science and great stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more epic tales of real-life genius.